Welcome to the Psychology and Physical Training channel, Introduction to Behavioristic Theories of Learning. Have you ever wondered why we behave the way we do? What triggers our actions and reactions? It's a fascinating question, isn't it? The answer lies in the behavioristic theories of learning, a school of thought that explores how our actions are shaped by our environment. These theories have been pivotal in understanding human behavior and are still relevant in today's world of psychology and beyond. In this exploration, we'll delve into the work of four key theorists: Edward Thorndike, Ivan Pavlov, B.F. Skinner, and Clark Hull. Each of them contributed unique ideas and theories, offering insights into why we act as we do. From Thorndike's law of effect to Pavlov's classical conditioning, Skinner's operant conditioning, and Hull's drive reduction theory, these theories have shaped the way we understand and interpret human behavior. Dive with us into the fascinating world of behavioristic theories and discover the mechanisms behind our actions. Thorndike's law of effect. We start our exploration with Edward Thorndike and his famous law of effect. This principle, fundamental to behaviorist psychology, asserts that behaviors followed by satisfying outcomes are likely to be repeated. Conversely, behaviors followed by unpleasant outcomes are less likely to be repeated. Quite simple, isn't it? But let's delve a bit deeper. Thorndike's law of effect is like a two-sided coin. On one side, we have reinforcement. This refers to the satisfying outcomes that increase the likelihood of repeating a behavior. Think of it as a reward system. When you do something good, you get a treat, and you're more likely to do it again. On the other side of the coin, we have punishment. This is the unpleasant outcome that decreases the likelihood of repeating a behavior. Picture a scenario where you touch a hot stove and burn your hand. You're less likely to touch a hot stove again, right? That's punishment in action. Thorndike's theory was born out of his experiments with cats. He created a puzzle box where a cat could escape only by pulling a loop or pressing a lever. The cat was motivated to escape to get to a piece of fish placed outside the box. Initially, the cat would scratch, bite, and claw at the box, but eventually, it would accidentally press the lever or pull the loop, opening the door. Over time, the cat would take less and less time to escape. The satisfying outcome of escaping and getting the fish reinforced the behavior of pressing the lever or pulling the loop. This is a classic example of the law of effect in action. In essence, Thorndike's law of effect is all about the consequences of our actions. It's about learning from experience, about understanding that our behaviors have outcomes, and these outcomes can influence our future actions. Whether it's the satisfaction of a job well done, the joy of a tasty treat, or the discomfort of a burn, these experiences shape our behaviors. So, according to Thorndike, the key to learning is the consequence of our actions. Pavlov's classical conditioning. Next up, we have Ivan Pavlov and his groundbreaking work on classical conditioning. Dive deep into the heart of Russia in the late 19th century, and you'll find Pavlov, a curious physiologist, observing his dogs. But he wasn't just playing around with his furry friends. Oh no, Pavlov was busy making one of the most significant discoveries in the field of psychology, the concept of classical conditioning. So, what is classical conditioning? In essence, it's a learning process that pairs two stimuli. The first is an unconditioned stimulus that naturally triggers a response, and the second, a neutral stimulus that does not. When these two stimuli are paired together over time, the neutral stimulus eventually triggers the same response. Sounds a bit complicated? Well, let's break it down using Pavlov's famous experiment. Pavlov noticed that his dogs would salivate when they saw food, a natural, unconditioned response to an unconditioned stimulus. But he also observed something peculiar. The dogs began to salivate at the sight of the lab assistant who fed them. This was odd, as the lab assistant himself wasn't tasty, or at least, we hope not. This is where the light bulb went off for Pavlov. He realized that the dogs were associating the lab assistant, a neutral stimulus, with food. After repeated pairings, the dogs began to salivate at the sight of the lab assistant, even when no food was present. The lab assistant had become a conditioned stimulus, triggering a conditioned response, salivation. Pavlov had discovered classical conditioning. So what does this tell us? It shows how our responses can be shaped by our environment. We learn to associate certain stimuli with certain outcomes, and this can influence our automatic reactions. It's not just about dogs and salivation. It's about how we learn to react to the world around us based on our experiences. Pavlov showed us that even our most basic reactions can be influenced by our environment. Skinner's operant conditioning. Now let's delve into the world of B.F. Skinner and his theory of operant conditioning. Burrhus Frederick Skinner, known widely as B.F. Skinner, was a critical figure in the development of behaviorism. He is renowned for his theory of operant conditioning, which emphasizes the impact of consequences on future actions. Now, what does this all mean? Let's break it down. Operant conditioning is a learning process through which behavior is shaped and maintained by its consequences. Skinner believed that we learn to behave in certain ways as we operate on the environment. In other words, our behaviors are not merely reactions to stimuli, but actions that have effects on our environment. And here's where it gets interesting. Skinner identified 3 types of responses that can follow behavior: reinforcers, which strengthen behavior; punishers, which weaken it; and neutral operants, which have no effect. Reinforcement is the cornerstone of operant conditioning. A reinforcer is any event that strengthens or increases the behavior it follows. There are 2 kinds of reinforcers, positive and negative. Positive reinforcement involves the addition of a rewarding stimulus, like getting a treat when you perform a trick. Negative reinforcement, on the other hand, involves the removal of an unpleasant stimulus, like turning off a loud alarm by getting out of bed. Then we have punishment, which, as you might guess, decreases the likelihood of a behavior. Just like reinforcement, punishment can be either positive or negative. However, in this context, positive means the addition of an undesirable consequence, and negative means the removal of a desirable consequence. To illustrate, imagine a rat in a Skinner box. If the rat presses a lever and receives food, the rat is likely to repeat the action, demonstrating positive reinforcement. If pressing the lever stops a loud noise, that's negative reinforcement. But if pressing the lever delivers a mild electric shock, the rat will likely stop pressing the lever, exemplifying positive punishment. Skinner's theory underscores the power of reward and punishment in shaping our behavior. This perspective has had a profound influence on areas such as education, psychology, and even animal training. It's a fascinating reminder of how our actions are molded by the consequences we experience. Hull's drive reduction theory. Finally, we come to Clark Hull and his drive reduction theory. This theory is all about the role of internal physiological states in driving behavior. Hull believed that our behaviors are responses to certain physiological needs or deficiencies that we experience. These needs or deficiencies create a state of tension or discomfort within us, which Hull referred to as a drive. Imagine feeling the gnawing pain of hunger in your stomach. That's a drive. According to Hull, we are motivated to perform certain behaviors that will reduce this drive and bring our physiological state back to equilibrium. So in the case of hunger, we are driven to find food and eat. Eating then reduces the drive, the tension or discomfort, and brings us back to a state of comfort or satisfaction. But of course, it's not just about hunger and eating. This theory can be applied to any drive and the corresponding behavior that reduces it. Hull's theory reminds us that our internal states can be a powerful motivator of our actions. Summing up behavioristic theories, so there we have it. 4 seminal theories that have shaped our understanding of human behavior. First, we delved into Thorndike's law of effect, which proposed that actions followed by satisfaction will be repeated, while those followed by discomfort will be avoided. Next, we examined Pavlov's classical conditioning, where a neutral stimulus can trigger a conditioned response when paired with an unconditioned stimulus. Then, we explored Skinner's operant conditioning, emphasizing the role of reinforcement and punishment in influencing behavior. Last, but not least, we discussed Hull's drive reduction theory, proposing that behavior is driven by the need to satisfy physiological drives. Throughout all these theories, a common thread emerges: the concept of learning through interaction with our environment. This highlights the importance of experience in shaping our behavior. As we've seen, our behavior is a complex interplay of internal states, environmental cues, and the consequences of our actions. Always remember, learning is an ongoing journey, and every experience is a stepping stone to understanding our behavior better. And if you like this video, do not forget to subscribe and follow to the Psychology and Physical Training channel for more videos. Thanks for watching.